Okay, this is Louis C.K. and Dane Cook in an episode of season 2 of Louis C.K.'s series Louie. So this is based on a real incident. What made you think of actually writing it into your series?
Well, what's interesting is that it's an incident that never happened. He and I never had that meeting.
But he was accused of stealing your jokes.
That's right. Yeah, he was, and we were on these two sides of this crazy thing. It was like one of the first YouTube grudges matches, where people would post his joke and my joke, and then everyone would comment who they thought stole what, and But I always had very ambivalent feelings about it because he's a human being, and I always felt a little weird about the whole thing. I felt like I felt what you just heard me say. But I didn't. A lot of people just said he's a horrible thief, and he was so vilified that it was really hard to watch happen. But anyway, I don't know. I started to think about him as I was writing season 2, and I thought it would be interesting to have us talk about it. So I sat down and I thought about the things I've read him say in the press and heard him say, and I thought I channeled him. Like I thought if I can make him the sort of the winner of the debate, or at least an even match, then it's worth doing. Letting him call me a fraud was really fun. It's so much more interesting than, like, I could have made him a straw dog or had somebody play him and gotten off on myself by saying you stole from me, but it was way more fun to have to go into someone who stole from me supposedly and have him call me a fraud. It's just so interesting. So I wrote it up and I wrote Dane an email and said, I wrote something. Do you want to read it with me? And he came to my office and we read it out loud together. And he said, I'll do this. And he went all in. I wrote that exact verbatim. He read everything the way I wrote it. And he asked for a couple of changes, and I said, no. And
What did he ask for?
He wanted to be lighter. He wanted to be less angry. He said, I'm not angry about this anymore, and I don't want to represent myself that way. And I said, well, the way you want to represent yourself isn't my lookout. I want to tell a story that's dramatic and interesting. And he saw that as valuable and said, sure, okay. So I think he kind of went back in time a little to get that anger up. And probably he's got some little residual anger, and I had some residual anger. So we both got to sort of say our thing. And then it was unresolved. That was the important thing to me, is that we said both of our things, and then it sort of lay there between us and didn't really go anywhere.
So how did the episode change your relationship with Dane Cook?
Well, we had a great day doing it, and I was profoundly impressed with his commitment to it, and I liked spending the time with him, and so we email and we keep making plans to meet and just have lunch or something, which we haven't done just because we're both busy people, but we've emailed back and forth. He recently we lost a friend in common, Patrice O'Neill, the comedian, died, and I dedicated my special to him, and Dane and he came up together in Boston. So we've shared feelings about that and stuff. These are all things that wouldn't have happened before we did this episode.
Well, I know it's not why you did it, but it seemed like the Dane Cook episode became like kind of that internet, holy did you see this? Like, and it just, I got forwarded so many times, and I mean, it just seemed like that kind of hit the zeitgeist there for a couple of days, and maybe that helped the show too, I'm guessing.
Oh, definitely. The Dane thing was great. We have a bunch of things like that. Like, I did think consciously about how the show's in a world where people watch stuff and they go, holy shit, and then they virally watch it. And it gets posted on Huffington Post or whatever, all these things. And the Dane thing, I like the idea of that kind of stuff where a little scene that you sit and you watch.
7 minutes, perfect YouTube size.
Yeah, I don't remember thinking that would happen, but yeah, that was that was something because of everything that had happened with Dane and how long all that shit had gone on. I thought if I get him and me in a room and we have this out in a way that feels really private and really real, there's some people who are going to really love it. Like, I knew it would be great.
Would it become like one of the in the whole comedy world, that was like one of the 4 or 5 things that people always talked about.
Yeah.
And it was kind of settled
it was
on that show.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know you were probably tired of talking about it.
I was really tired. I mean, I used to get every interview I did until I got my show.
Yeah.
Every interview I did, people asked me, what's up with Dane Cook thing? And I would just...
What would happen like when you cross paths with him?
I only saw him one time when we did Comic Relief. We were both on Comic Relief, like that year that it was going on.
Yeah.
And, I remember I was sitting on a couch in the green room watching the TV, and he was sitting next to me, and we're both watching the TV and not looking at each other.
Really?
And it felt stupid.
Yeah.
And he has friends that I have. So it was like...
Well, like that Bobby Kelly's one of his guys,
one of
right?
my best friends, and he's one of Dane's best friends.
That's weird.
And Gary Gulman. And Gary and Bobby were both there. And so Dane would go over and talk to Gary and Bobby, and then I would wait for him to leave, and then I'd go over. It was just stupid. It's like, what are we, kids? And so we're sitting on the couch, and I was like, I'm not doing this. And I turned to him, and I go... hey, great. He had been on stage, and he did a good job.
Yeah.
I said, hey, great set. And he said, thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm excited to watch you go on. I said, oh, great. And that we got it out of the way. And then we were on we didn't sell anything.
Yeah.
But then we were on the stage, and people are shaking hands, so we shook hands. I'm not going to have an enemy. What am I in a schoolyard? I don't need enemies. But anyway, we never really solved anything. We wrote a couple emails back and forth, and then...
if you were rappers, it would have worked better, I think.
Yeah.
Comedians, not as good.
No, the comedian gripes are... That's one reason I never said anything about it, is because who cares?
Yeah. Well, obviously, a lot of people did care.
A lot of people really cared. And I felt bad for Dane, because I knew a lot of the backlash was backlash. It wasn't about me. Nobody was looking carefully at the thing. They were just enjoying pissing in his face. They just loved...
And it was a little like he had gotten too popular. Mm-hmm. You were the comics comic. You weren't popular enough.
Neither thing is true.
Right.
Dane is not some kind of a bigger than life person. He's a human being, and I'm also not some terrific. I'm just
you're not a cock
like everybody else. Yeah. So I made us both human. That was the idea. It was just to humanize us, meet us in the middle somewhere. I think it helped Dane because I think
it really helped him.
Well, I think his climb was so about him being a massive, huge figure, and I think that's never a good idea because no one is that. No one is that. You're just a person, and people don't like feeling like you're bigger than them.
They don't want to root for you either.
No.
Yeah.
So I think people see him as what he is. He's a guy. He's just a guy, and I think he, was, in a frenzy, and he was, there's people that, like Robin Williams has admitted that when he's got such a thirst for ideas and his mind works like a motor.
Yeah.
And he's been in rooms and seen stuff and then absorbed it and then spat it out.
Right.
And he's admitted that. And, Robin's a great comic. There's no looking at it any other way. He's a great actor. But he doesn't get vilified the way Dane did. You know what I mean? Like, there's other people who have made those mistakes. I know comedians that are really funny and well-respected who take from other people without knowing it. Like, I've seen people do that, and no one goes after them because aesthetically they love them. But Dane,
so how'd you...
his hair is greased up and he's wearing a tight T-shirt. So people enjoyed all over him. But he's a good man. He's a good person.
Well, how'd you approach him?
I wrote him an email, and I said, look, I wrote a thing for my show, and it has you in it, and it addresses our issue.
Yeah.
And I think if you read it, you'd want to do it. I can't send it to you, because I didn't want to give it to him as...
Yeah.
Can't send it to you, so I'd like you to just come to my office and read it with me. And if you don't do it, I'll get somebody to play it. Like, I just put that at the end.
You would have got an actor?
Yes. I just decided I'm going to be a little bit of an just say, I'll get somebody else to do it. I don't need you to do it. Because then he'll really want to, at least, I just wanted to get him in the room.
Yeah.
So he showed up by himself and sat in my office, and we read the whole script together. Like, he read all the parts that weren't me. He read my agent, my daughters, everything. And then we got to that scene, and God, I really admire him. He didn't ask to take a minute to read it by himself. He didn't protect himself in any way. He just sat there with me and read what I wrote for him to say. And
so he didn't come up with that?
No, that's all mine. I wrote
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe you ad-libbed it.
No, we didn't ad-lib anything.
Did he have trouble sticking to that?
No, he didn't. He read it. When he read it, I wrote it based on what I thought he would have said. And also, to me, every time I'm against an adversary on my show, I want to let them win because it's more interesting to me.
Yeah.
If I get into like a kind of weird territory and I write myself a winning line,
yeah,
it's just It just feels fake, you know. But I feel like I can go to weird places as long as I don't get the best lines, you know. And it all helps me. I'm happy to lose an argument to Dane on my show because he's on my show and we're doing this really cool thing. I'm more interested in seeing the thing happen than wanting some kind of outcome that benefits me, you know, or makes me look good. So I wrote this stuff like I thought, what would he really feel if I was him? Like, what would I feel about this, you know? I know it's frustrating to him. I know he's angry about it. So where would that come from? I didn't know, and I thought about it carefully, and I thought, well, he'd probably feel like nobody really gave him a chance, and I'm getting a bullshit pass because of what people think I am, and you know that he was just why would he steal 3 jokes when he has, you know, hours and hours of material that no one thinks he's who would do that? Why would someone do that? And so I wrote it out that way, and we read it, and his thoughts were, he said, I think that I'm too angry in this thing because I'm not angry anymore. I've let it go. And I would like this thing to reflect. I'd like to show people that I'm an even-headed guy and that I'm funny. I'd like to be funny in it more because I was taking pot shots at him. And he's just angry. And he wanted to be funny like me, and he wanted to be easier about it. And I said, well, I understand how you want to be perceived, but that's not interest. I have no interest in how you're perceived.
Right.
It means nothing to me. I just want to do this scene because this is going to be really cool. And I said, if you have any concerns, don't do it. And I would never fault you for not doing it. But I can't take a single note from you. I can't do it. And he thought about it and he said, okay, I'll do it. And he did it as written. The only change that he asked for that I did was it was supposed to take place in a comedy club. And he said, it should be at Madison Square Garden, because that's where I play if I'm in New York. He said, you should have to come and see me at Madison Square Garden. And here's how stupid I am. I said, no, we're going to meet at the comedy club. That's what I wrote. And he agreed.
Yeah.
And then I told a friend of mine, and he said, you're so stupid, because that's way funnier. If you have to go to Madison Square Garden,
go in the bowels of MSG.
Yeah, you have to like really grovel to this guy who sold out Madison Square Garden for this thing. It's so much better. It puts you in such a terrible position. And I realized that I was being blinded by competitiveness. Here I'm telling him, no, you're going to be playing a club. And I realized, oh my God, I'm a bit of an here. Of course it should be MSG. So I wrote him and said, we're doing MSG. And
you're like, fine, I'll do the Felt Forum, but not MSG. We're going to meet middle ground.
Exactly. And then once I got there, I realized, because it was this austere place, I realized this is so funny. And I had this idea of having these security guards, which we didn't have in the script. And so we didn't have security guards. So we called this security company, the kind that sends like 8 armed guards.
Right.
They were all armed. They were all serious, like Navy SEAL type guys, and it costed a little bit of money, but it looked perfect. So,
and I would argue that was a great thing for him ultimately, being on the show, the whole clip, everything. I think it was good for him.
I think so.
Did you have
healing?
Did you have other people then see that and say,